Yo, I'm Bob. Into Star Wars, happen to be totally blind since birth. Gonna be talking about part 5 of Ahsoka on Disney Plus. Spoilers ahead. If you don't want to get spoiled, I suggest you watch the episode. However, if you don't mind a spoilery recap slash review, then come along. You do you. That being said, jumping right in, and you were warned. Part 5 is called Shadow Warrior. And, of course, I think the Shadow Warrior in question here is Anakin Skywalker. He is in this world between worlds, and he is attempting to teach Ahsoka yet another lesson. I've seen this episode around 4 times, and I just can't get over how cool the entire episode was. I think for me, getting to see Hayden Christensen with Rosario, Dawson, and Ariana Greenblatt as young Ahsoka, that really impressed me quite a lot. There is so much to digest. I've seen it 4 times. I don't think I'll be able to get everything out in just one video, but I guess I'll try. I had one heck of a time with the audio description. I think Nicole Zanzarella was one heck of a narrator. The episode just kept me interested from start to finish. It didn't feel like 52 minutes for me. I was invested in this, and I think I got quite a bit out of what Anakin had to teach Ahsoka. I like how Hera manages to locate Huyang right when the episode begins. And when he's talking to Hera, when Huyang is speaking to her, there is such a grief in this droid's voice. The way David Tennant delivers the lines, I told them to stay together, but they never listen. They never listen. There is such a despondency in his voice. And man, I love David Tennant so much here when he delivers the lines at the beginning of the episode. But I think after the title comes up, after Shadow Warrior, and we really get into it, I couldn't pause the vid no matter how much I wanted to in order to go get a glass of water. I was riveted when Anakin or Hayden Christensen showed up on screen. And, you know, he's talking about Baylan. Ahsoka's talking about Baylan. And he says, oh, well, it's good that you remember Baylan. It's good that you're remembering the past, because there's the lesson to be taught in this. You know, and he tells her, you can either live or die. And they start that epic lightsaber duel. And since it's the world between worlds, before we know it, Ahsoka is back during the Clone Wars. And this reminds me of a scene from the novel Crucible by Troy Denning. Leia, toward the end of the book, she enters an unknown monolith. And this monolith kind of transfers her to somewhere different in time and space. And we get to see a much younger Leia. It really reminded me of that scene from Crucible, The World Between Worlds does here, when we get to see a much younger Ahsoka and Anakin. They're having to fight at some unidentified battle. I thought it was Ryloth at first, but now I'm not so sure. There are a couple of Twi'leks that we see here, but yeah, we don't know when exactly this battle takes place. It could be on Ryloth, and from what I'm seeing on Wikipedia, Captain Rex was actually in the episode. I don't know if that's been confirmed elsewhere, but I was wondering if he was going to show up too. But yeah, I think he is in the flashback here during this particular battle. And I think Ariana Greenblatt, who plays a younger Ahsoka, man, she nailed the voice, at least in my opinion. I'm not sure how the visuals were pulled off. I would imagine she did very well. But, you know, when it comes to Ahsoka, circa Clone Wars, and that voice, man, I was definitely buying into what she delivered here in terms of a performance. I really loved her as a much younger Ahsoka. And Ahsoka just keeps telling him, well, what if I don't want to fight? What if I don't want to be a soldier? Am I going to have to teach this lesson to my Padawan one day? All there is in life is fighting. Is that really all that there is? And Anakin tells her yet again, well, either you live and you fight, or you die. And we get to see the siege of Mandalore. After that bit of dialogue in the Clone Wars, she is beating herself up for all the clones that died under her command. And this is something I wish they had focused on a little bit more during the animated series. This is a kid here. This is a 14-year-old kid when the Clone Wars start, and she is responsible for so many tough decisions. And she naturally, of course, is doubting, and she does fear from time to time. And Anakin is trying to teach her to overcome that fear, to face that fear. And as they're talking here and there throughout the flashback, we get to see him transition into Vader. And when they show up at the Battle of Mandalore, they have a little talk about the knowledge that Anakin is passing on to Ahsoka. And it reminded me quite a lot of what Luke had to say to Rey much later on in this timeline. He tells Rey, 1,000 generations live in you now. Confronting fear is the destiny of a Jedi. And, as Ahsoka and Anakin are conversing during the Battle of Mandalore, he tells Ahsoka, everything I am is in you. All the knowledge that I got from Obi-Wan was passed to me, and all my knowledge, all the good, all the bad, is passed to you. And right away, Ahsoka's like, well, yeah, but you're much more powerful and dangerous than any of us ever realized. And if you're going to pass all that along, and Anakin's like, wait a minute, you're not listening to me. You're not learning what I want you to learn. So we're going to have to start from the beginning, because she's not wanting to face the shadow of Vader. At least that's what I got out of it. She is not wanting to acknowledge this dark portion of Jedi history here. And I think he's telling her, well, if you're going to be afraid that you're going to make the same mistakes, if you're constantly going to be living in fear, then you're not going to move forward. You're not going to grow. You're not going to learn. Yes, we make mistakes. We fall down. We make horrible choices. And those choices affect people. But just because we don't like the choices we've made, that doesn't mean that we need to forget them, because it's the only way we learn. Making these unfortunate choices, yeah, they are unfortunate and we shouldn't make them, but it's the only way we learn, and it's the only way we grow if we acknowledge those choices, if we acknowledge our pasts, if we learn from our past, as hard as that is. And, he starts to duel with her again, and he's got that red saber. We get to see that shadow of Vader, and she chooses to fight him. But rather than give in to the dark side, rather than cut him down with the red saber, she takes it from him and she casts it aside. She's not like Ulic Qel-Droma from Star Wars Legends or the EU. Ulic thought he could join the dark side and destroy the dark side from within. Use the dark side to destroy the dark side. That's what Dooku wanted to do too. He wanted to, I think in some ways, he wanted to use the dark side to conquer it. He wanted to, as Yoda said in the Clone Wars, he wanted to answer power with power. That's what Nadar Veb attempted to do with General Grievous, and that's what led to his undoing during the Clone Wars, by the way. So yeah, she faces Vader, and she takes the saber and she casts it into the void. She, I think, acknowledges what he was, that part of the legacy that Anakin is passing to her. And I think, hopefully she's going to learn from it and she's going to move forward. And when she says she chooses to live, I think she's probably also saying, I choose to live with all of this, the good along with the bad. And that's just my opinion. Um, she finally faces the specter of Vader, you know. I mean, she's faced him before and they've dueled before, but you know, this is after Return of the Jedi. She's not really gotten to face Anakin. And I think, you know, Anakin being one with the Force now, it's something that he remembers every day. I think he undoubtedly has to go throughout eternity living with the choices that he's made. I don't think they were very good choices. Of course, they weren't very good choices at all. But, I mean, it's the only way you move forward. And I think Ahsoka is choosing to live. Of course, she's choosing to rejoin the normal world rather than the world between worlds, and she's choosing to come back, and she is choosing to move on. And I think acknowledging that, yes, I could go to the dark side. I could get angry. I know my master did, but I'm going to try and do better than that, you know. And I think that's what Anakin's telling her. You know, don't make my mistakes. Don't make those. You learn from them. Remember them. Don't block them out. Don't forget them. Because if you do, you'll have to repeat them over. You'll have to go back and do it all over again if you don't learn from the past. If you don't acknowledge that there are things that you can fix. And so, you know, I think that's an interesting lesson. If that was the lesson he had to teach her. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm sure quite a few fans take quite a few different things from this episode. I think it's an episode I'm going to be going back over and watching time and time again. I really enjoyed the Clone Wars segment here. Quite a lot. So meanwhile, you've got Jacen Syndulla, and he is hearing things on Cetos. He actually hears Ahsoka and Anakin dueling, I do believe, in the world between worlds. And he's using his other senses, just like his dad did when he was at peak Kanan ability there. You know, he's not relying on his eyes. He's actually listening to those sabers. And he's a very perceptive kid, just like Daddy Kanan. And I kind of hope that Kanan might have been watching. We don't really know. I still hope that eventually in some form of media, animation or live action, that Kanan might actually show up and have a couple of words with Jacen. I would love to experience that scene, be it in a book or animation, because, you know, Jacen also has quite a legacy to remember and to learn from. And I really like the scene where he was kind of doing what Kanan did. You know, he was relying on his other senses, attempting to pinpoint Ahsoka. And of course they do eventually find her. And I like that he played a part in finding her, and of course they get her back to the ship and all. I like the mention of Leia Organa, Senator Organa. We got Carson Teva mentioning Organa at one point in the show, so a cool reference to the big three. I would absolutely love to see more of Han and Luke and Leia during this time period, be it in a book or animation or something. Let's see. When Ahsoka grabs the star map and she's attempting to learn exactly what happened to Sabine after she comes to, and after she's hopefully learned Anakin's lesson to the best of her ability, I like how she just touches it and she hears things. I don't know if she saw anything or not. The audio description track didn't describe any visions that might have come to her, but of course I'm thinking of Quinlan Vos and his ability to handle objects and gain impressions from those objects. That force ability that he has. I wonder if she ever crossed paths with him after the Clone Wars. That's something I'd really like to see, is possibly Ahsoka meeting up with Quinlan after the Clone Wars. Because we do know that Quinlan was a part of the Path. We got to see Obi-Wan finding that out during his show. So who knows? I'd kind of like to see Ahsoka and Quinlan eventually crossing paths. But of course, you know how the episode ends. We get to see the Purgil, and they provide a way where there is no way. Ahsoka's actually able to communicate with them, and they hop inside the Purgil of all Purgil's mouths, and they jump into hyperspace, and that's kind of where we're left off. I kind of wanted to see a bit of B story in terms of, you know, what's going on with Sabine and the other galaxy, but it's something that I didn't find myself constantly asking about during the episode. There was a lot to process during the scene with Anakin and Ahsoka, with Ahsoka having to face the mistakes that the Jedi made, the things they ignored, the things that Anakin did. She had to face her own fear, and I really enjoyed that part of the episode. That's something that Luke has to learn much later on in this timeline. You know, when he makes the mistake of going into exile after Ben falls to the dark side, Luke gives into his own fear. He chooses to basically do nothing, and he let his own fear paralyze him. And I think that that's part of the lesson that Anakin was teaching Ahsoka. Don't give in to the fear of failure. If you fail, you have to get back up. You don't have to quit. You can get back up, and you can keep going. And if you let your fear of failure paralyze you, then you know you're not going to be much good to anybody. And I think that was just such a powerful moment in the episode, where she has to face down the Vader persona there, and she doesn't use the dark side to end him. It was such a cool moment. I wish I had more to say about the episode, but I think I have reached the end of all that I have to say. There's probably a lot more to process. I love this world between worlds stuff, this Virgin Scatter stuff. Man, just getting to experience more of the Clone Wars with a younger Ahsoka. I absolutely loved Ariana Greenblatt's performance, and hopefully we'll get to see a bit more of that. And I was very glad that Hayden Christensen came back to play the role of Anakin. I really enjoyed him in the prequels, and so seeing him back as Anakin makes me feel like I'm a kid again. I absolutely loved the episode. Loved hearing Tim Morrison back as the clone troopers. Gives the episode more of a Star Wars movie feel or sound. I think Mary Elizabeth Winstead did a fine job as Hera, as always. I can't wait to see where they're going with next week's episode. We don't know where they're going, as they point out at the end of the episode. And I like how Ahsoka says, well, it's better than going nowhere at all. So yeah, she is moving forward. She is progressing in her, knowledge of what it is to be a Jedi, of moving forward, of not giving in to fear, of learning from your mistakes, getting back up, and walking forward in spite of the past. You face your past, you learn from it, or you are doomed to repeat it, I guess. So yeah, I think I give the episode I want to say a 9.5 out of 10. You know what? Maybe I'll give it a 10 out of 10. I really had a ball with the world between worlds, and I really hope we're not done with this interesting Force concept here. Who knows what they're going to do next week? I don't know what episode 6 is called, because we got a week until that comes out. And hopefully we'll see things happening in another galaxy. Sabine, possibly Thrawn. Finally get to see Ezra. Who knows where they're going. Till next time, guys, may the Force be with you.